Every time I get close to finishing something, Godot has an update. I don't know if this means I work slow or they move fast, but something's really fishy around these parts. You know that saying, start at the beginning? I'm so far out of the loop when it comes to game programming, I don't even know where the beginning is. So I enlisted the help of an expert guide, Brackies! His Godot tutorials are incredibly easy to follow because sometimes he speaks my language. Using food metaphors. His 2D guide is just a little over an hour, which I managed to stretch into 4. Now, we're not going to sit through a detailed recap of me attempting the tutorial. Instead, here's some replay highlights. Godot had been updated in between the tutorial being released and me attempting it, so the tile map node for the world was deprecated. At least that's what I think happened. Good news, it's just came with a warning, it did not actually break anything. I accidentally deleted things, also used the wrong nodes several times. Kill zones and collision shapes are my new best friends. They keep you where you want to be. By the time I was nearing the end of the tutorial, I was feeling quite proud of myself, and then Godot 4.6 was released. Good news, it didn't break anything, it just looked different. And then I was done. There's not really a lot to talk about when it comes to following a tutorial, because it's a tutorial. Anyone can do it, and honestly, we'd probably all have the same result, unless we did something different. Bracky's 2D Tutorial 2.0, Clover Edition. I've heard a lot about new game devs trying to make a huge game as their first thing. So I figured the best way to avoid doing that myself is to do the exact same thing I just did, but on my own. A single level, nothing too fancy. The problem is, I have a very specific set of art skills. I make VTuber models, but only if they are of me, for me. I've also made a couple of emotes and alerts, but that's also me. So I figured I'd just keep going with it. After all, how hard could a Clover-themed pixel art game be? It turns out, very! I am not a pixel artist at all. I'm not good at it. Worse, I don't enjoy it. Pixel art is a special kind of beautiful, awe-inspiring, and seems kind of impossible to do. And it made me flash back to grade school classes that you really hate, but you still have to take, so you end up hating everything around you instead. But I'm an adult. I don't like forcing myself to do things I don't like if there's no reason to do them. So I just changed the game I was making instead. It's still a side-scrolling platformer, but I made it larger, so it's no longer a pixel game. And I know I'm only making one level, so I don't need to be super precious about the file size. I'm just here to have fun. I already knew I was making this game around me, which sounds kind of egotistical now that I say it out loud, but I wanted something familiar. Plus, I figured it's a good way to include my streams a little bit. You see, when I stream on Twitch, I have a few redeems that make up the Clover care package, which is hydrate, stretch, and have a Clover snack. They are almost always redeemed together. And while having all 3 would have been cool, I could not think of a good way to draw a stretch that you could pick up like a coin. But snacks, those things are perfect. Shout out to Potato, best mod and brilliant thinker who suggested a white outline on Noodle so she could pop against the background. She's the black cat, by the way. Now, my cats are definitely not an enemy, but they had to fill in for the enemy character here. The world turned out to be a really big struggle. I could not for the life of me figure out what I wanted to do. Since this is kind of a slice of life diary of a game, my hunt for food, I figured the game world should reflect that a little bit too. So I just made the game about making the game. Very meta, right? I won't lie, I really struggled with the look for this. Since my color scheme is grayscale, I wasn't sure the best way to keep the character front and center. If there was too much color in the background, I was worried it would be harder to follow. I probably ended up redoing this stuff 20 times over. In the end, I just went with a really simple design, muted tones, and pretty much nothing for the background. But I think it looks okay. I'm happy enough with it. So I hope you like it too. And then it was time to put it all together. I did have some problems, mainly because the character is significantly larger, so the gravity calculations were all kinds of wonky. It also didn't feel good to play. Bracky's tutorial was really fun to run around in, but now with a larger size, everything felt floaty and just off. That's where more Godot YouTube experts come in. Cold has a wonderful and very short tutorial that totally saved the movement. The jump feels good and it works. I also should have mentioned this, but before I drew out all the background art, I made a test of the level using a single block that I just duplicated everywhere. I wanted to make sure what I was doing would be fun before committing to hours of drawing it. I did have to adjust things a bit, but it wasn't too bad. I think the end result is fun to run through. It's short and sweet, perfect for a first project. I also had to come up with music. If you've known me for a while, you'll know that last year I was attempting to make a visual novel. That didn't happen, but I made a fair bit of music for it, so this song was taken from that. And for the sound effects, that's just me making silly noises. So my goal was to add a pause menu where you could adjust the audio. Super simple, right? It is if you know what you are doing. And I am not one of those people. The making of the pause screen was pretty simple, surprisingly, so was the audio slider. Music and sound effects are routed through this main audio bus, as the slider controls that. I made the pause menu in its own little section that I could drop into the main game scene, and then I was good to go. Except for one slight problem. Whenever you die, the audio level resets. The music doesn't restart because it's a global scene, so naturally I tried to make the pause menu a global scene as well. That didn't exactly work. So I tried making a config file that I could save the adjusted audio to as a variable that would be referenced every time the game restarted. I wasn't sure if that would work though, since this is an HTML game, and everything that I saw about config files had it referencing downloaded games like on your desktop. I didn't want to go that route, so I pivoted and tried a different global script which would take the value of the audio bus and then reference it when the scene reloads, and that created a whole host of new issues. But I was on the semi-right track. It turns out all I needed to do was set the music slider to have its own script that controls the audio level and make that script global. Literally a 2-minute fix that I spent around 3 hours trying to wrap my head around. But at least I'm learning. The pause menu also had a few problems, mainly not being able to unpause the game. As you can see from my commented out code, I tried a few things trying to get this to work. Eventually, I stumbled into a way to do this. If you unpause and then you try to pause again, you end up having to press escape twice, but everything else works. I'm sure there's a fix for this, but at this point, I figured 95% of what I wanted to make is there. I can figure out a better way for the next one. And that's what this is all about, isn't it? Your first game is probably not going to be perfect. Mine certainly isn't, but from a learning perspective, this was amazing. I learned so much, and I have an entire list of things I want to do better next time. I want to do a series of game size tests to figure out what resolution my art looks best in. I want to make actual UI menus with art and not just shapes and text, to figure out saves and how to comment out an entire block of code instead of using hashtags in front of every single line. There's so much to explore here. I guess this means I'm making another game soon, after I update Godot again. If you liked being along for this adventure, hit subscribe so you can see what I attempt to make next. And if you want to play Clover's Snack Hunt, the link is down below.